Hey guys, what's up? I hope you guys are doing well. This is my first post on here, the Sunday Night Notions. I kind of just want to create a similar vibe on here as to what Jay Schlapp made with the weekly slap, which helped me personally with a lot of stuff going on in my life. And I feel like it helps a lot to have someone react to issues going on in your life personally, whether or not it's good advice, bad advice, or any advice at all. But yeah, I mean, I'm just not going to cut here. I'm just going to let my thoughts flow, and the eventual goal is to kind of respond to some of you guys and maybe explain some of my problems and relate that to y'all's and see if, any advice or exchange can be helpful to one another. Can't say I've been through a lot, but there's definitely some things I've been through. But yeah, I feel like this can help a lot of people, and myself included. The first thing I wanted to talk about on here, though, is about a comment I saw actually on an Instagram post the other day. Essentially, the post talked about if you drop a mouse in a bucket of water, it'll tread water for 15 minutes and then drown. But if you save that same mouse at one time, it'll continue to tread water for another 24 hours before drowning. And while this was meant to be a uplifting, I guess, post, it one comment really shook me that said, "So hope prolongs suffering." And there's a lot of discussion in the comments, but I think taking that comment at its face value, it can be interpreted in multiple different ways, but it could be related to things like sports, life, well, obviously life, but relationships with your family or anything romantic. It could be academic-wise, but I think it's interesting to analyze with relationships. So, for example, I'd say if you have some significant other in your life, when you reach a point of stalling out in said relationship, does it ultimately prolong your end suffering if there's a bounce back point, for lack of a better word, or some redemption in that relationship after stalling out that makes you think it might be alive again? So ultimately, is it better for that relationship to have ended when it stalled out, to cut out any suffering that may have been magnified because of it? And I'm not necessarily here to answer that question, because I think that can be viewed from two different points of view, rather. First is that, no, I think that moment of hope in itself is worth it, just simply because of the fact of what it was. It is hope, and it was a positive notion, no pun intended, notion of happiness and love or peace. But the other way to look at that is, sure, I think had the suffering ended before the regained hope or love had come, everything would have been easier. Moving on, the stages of grief, all aspects of that prolonged suffering, as he quoted, would have been much easier to deal with. And I think there's some validity to both sides. But there's a third viewpoint, if you will, that says, well, I don't really know. I'd have to put this in certain words. But because of the fact that that relationship ends prior to said renewed hope or renewed love, you would have never known what would have happened ultimately. So having that hope for that time period rather than not having it at all means there's, in the midst of that, maybe that ultimate suffering never would have come about. But that's an experience or knowledge that you never would have gained had that not happened. So I don't know if you guys see this. I'd be interested to know your viewpoint. I could relate this to a few points in my life, but let me know if you guys can do the same. Hit me with any life issues or philosophical debacles that you guys are facing, and I'd love to give my take on it as well as anything you guys might want to say. So, all right, this is the first one. I'll see you guys at some point.